I've just finished making this little object which, together with the solar sail, comprises the main system by which we can power both the big sailboat using a 68-pound thrust motor plus the little fold-up dinghy using an 18-pound thrust motor. Now, this is a 10 amp hour battery, and so to charge this battery up requires 5 amps for 2 hours. So if you can get 5 amps out of a solar power setup, you should be able to charge this little battery in a couple of hours. So the idea is that your solar panels, this is wherever your solar panels are. You take this and you take your solar sail, and your solar sail is packed up into a format the size of a single panel. And so the sail goes on the boat, on the dinghy. This goes in the dinghy and off you go. You motor away with this, and you've got 3 options really. You can use the motor. If you run out of battery, you could use the sail. If you run out of wind, well, you're going to have to row, aren't you? And so you're going to need to carry a paddle. But I don't see that I'll be taking oars in this boat. I think this boat will just have a single paddle, which you can just kneel in the bottom and just paddle like you would a canoe. It's interesting to think about this. You're not going to do that very easily if you've got a solar sail in the middle of the boat. So it's food for thought really, isn't it? But anyway, we digress. Or maybe not. If you have a 100 watt panel puts out about 5 amps, and so on a bad day it's probably going to be putting out 2 amps, 2.5 amps maybe. And if you've got 2 of these, then you're putting out 5 amps, which is enough to charge back for a couple of hours. And a couple of hours is probably what you need if you're going to go park up somewhere. But let's say you only take half an hour, and so half an hour, that's a quarter of capacity. But let's say you only use a quarter of the capacity of this to get where you want to go. It's going to charge it up. And the idea is that when you're not using the sailboat, it's charging wherever you are. If it's tied to the back of the boat, and there's no need to have the solar panels back on the main boat, because your main boat is at anchor. You can leave the panels, as long as the weather's all right, you can leave the panels on the dinghy. It can be charging the dinghy motor. And you've got another solar panel on board your main boat which is charging everything there. It's just that you need the extra power if you want to run your electric motors. So wherever you want to run your electric motors, that's where you want your solar sail. So your solar sail is moving from the dinghy to the main boat. And when it's on the main boat, it hooks up together with the other solar panel there, so you're getting 300 watts of power, which is about 15 amps. And so it will take, at that rate, you can probably run your main trolling motor quite well on light power on that sort of amperage. It's interesting. This is an experiment really, and it's necessary to go with the experiment and find out, because many people do the calculations, but most people are not as frugal as me. What happens with most people is, I've been working with solar power for years, and I know the limitations of it, so I would never dream of trying to run a refrigerator or something like that, which is anything that's using power constantly. I wouldn't dream of using, because you're going to have to somehow, and at night, you know. And so my whole way of operating with this is to try to get the power usage as low as possible. And so I've got the smallest motor that I think can push my sailboat, and the smallest motor I think is going to push the sailing dinghy. And this should give me the most efficiency as far as using the power. And I'm relying on the fact that the sun, when the sun is in the sky, it doesn't matter if it's cloudy, it's still charging. And especially in a marine environment where you've got the sun is hitting the water and bouncing back up again, and so you've got quite an amplification of sunlight, and I feel that panels which are vertical are going to maximize that benefit. And so we'll see exactly how much power we get from these panels once we start using them. I need a sailing dinghy. I need a dinghy for my boat. The minimum I need is a dinghy, and if it can be a sailing dinghy, that's great, because the last dinghy I had, I turned into a sailing dinghy, and I had a lot of fun, because if you're out in the islands somewhere and you've got nothing to do, there's nothing better than to, you know, mess around in little dinghy sailing boats. It's really great fun. And so that's my idea. And if it can sail, it can have a solar panel. If it's got a sail, it can carry solar power. So the whole idea, and I need to improve my self-steering, because my self-steering is not that great. And so I feel if I have this wind vane idea, it will kill two birds with one stone. It will get me 3 times the solar power I've got on board now, and it will be a wind vane in the process. And so it's really a lot of things added together, and the fact that my boat is so small, only 22 feet, that it's necessary that everything be designed to optimize its usage, to both use as little power as necessary and to generate as much power as we can, given the small boat size for carrying the solar. So, not to be too greedy with all this stuff, as I say, 10 amp hours, it's not much, but quite adequate to get to shore and back on your dinghy. And I have some other ideas. What I like about this whole business of electricity is that I cannot afford to run an expensive diesel motor or diesel generator. This is just beyond my abilities. If anything goes wrong with these kind of objects, they're super expensive to fix. So I don't really want anything on my boat that is very expensive if something goes wrong, or difficult to get parts and things like that. And so any system that's on my boat that's going to be like that has to be non-critical. And so far my diesel engine is critical, but if I get these other systems in place, then it's not as critical. And so it gives me the opportunity to experiment with the different systems and find out how far I can get with it. And if I don't get very far, well, I've always got the diesel to fall back on. And if I'm not using the diesel in the end, then I'll say, okay, well, that experiment works. And so there's a possibility of removing the diesel. And I had the idea that it might be more economical to buy a low-cost petrol generator. And petrol is actually better for the environment than diesel. Diesel is a pretty shocking... I don't run diesel cars. For some reason I'm not attracted to diesel cars. It must be because of their polluting aspects. And so a small petrol generator, which is sufficient to top up what the panels can't give. It's quiet, it can take the place of the diesel in the engine bay and produce enough amps to drive my main motor, is also an option. And I like the idea that maybe you pay £300 or £400 for one of these things. If it packs up, or in 3 or 4 years time, when it's kind of started to corrode and become unreliable, you can replace it with another one. And this, to my mind, is a lot easier to achieve in my situation than if I have to have a £20,000 diesel engine on board, which is not obtainable and not maintainable. So for people who are more financial, these kind of ideas that I have probably don't make any sense. But for those people who are looking to sail on a budget, this is really what these videos are all about. I hope this explains why I'm doing this and what I'm trying to achieve. And I also feel that we have to find out where we can go with this solar energy. And Elon Musk has done a good job in the area of cars. And you know, everybody poo-pooed Elon Musk, say, oh, you can't have electric cars, but look what he's ended up doing. So I feel that at the opposite end of the spectrum, the child's dinghy is something which I feel could be a lot of fun and a safe way for children to mess about in boats. So, of course, oars and sails are good, but for a lot of children, they haven't got the time, they've only got a short period, and they're with their parents maybe, and so if they can put a little electric motor and one of these on the back of the dinghy go buzzing around, I think it's a good idea. And so to also get these young children interested in solar sailboats, I think it's good for humanity, where that might lead us when they grow up to become the Elon Musks of the future. This is really part of what I hope to achieve by exploring this subject myself. Maybe it inspires somebody on the YouTube videos to have a go themselves. And that's the great thing about it, because the ideas don't come from me, the ideas come from nature, and nobody owns this stuff. So it's just a matter of take it and run with it and do what you can. And let's try to make a better world, which is more in tune with nature and not so polluting. That's the idea, I think. Thank you.